Thank you very much. Hard act to follow.
You can do it.
I'm not sure. You almost had me crying there at the beginning too. At one point in my life, I was a homeless alcoholic and drug addict living on the streets of New York. Well, I wasn't actually living on the street. We had squatted a building in Lower Manhattan, and the only meals that I got were in places where I could get a handout. And it's become a more well-known fact about my own personal history, but it's a very important thing that drives me to do what I do, because once you've been there, and I've been on both sides of that. I was a spoiled little rich jerk growing up in New York City. Your children are here, so I'm watching my language. You're welcome. And the whole world revolved around me. Everything was about me, 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 me. At the same time, I got to travel. I got to see the world. I got exposed to a great series of ideas through a great education and loving parents. And I saw that there was an amazing world out there, and it could be best understood through food. I just didn't know it at the time. I went to college, and I took Art History 101 at Vassar College. Day one of my freshman year, Madame Koretsky, the head of the Northern Renaissance painting department, got up, and she put a slide on the wall of a woman in a turban, a bowl of fruit on the ground, and a window, and in the window you could see the ocean, and there were some boats. And she said, write down everything that you see in that picture. And everyone wrote down the same 10 things. And then she started her talk, and she said, I'm sure you all noticed and she ticked them off, and everyone's like, yeah, we get an A, right? And she said, but here's what I see when I look at those 10 things. And she basically described 16th century Florentine life just through the information. She was like Sherlock Holmes. It never occurred to me that bananas didn't grow in Holland, right? I knew intellectually bananas didn't grow in Holland, but the idea that there were bananas on the table meant something about that family, who they were, what their business was, what the status was of Holland as a nation state. And I began to realize over the course of my food life, I got into restaurants, I started cooking at, very high level with very famous people in big cities all around the world, Hong Kong, Paris, Venice, worked for 2 years for Thomas Keller in New York City. And I began to realize that it was stories about food, and it was the power of telling a tale could put it in perspective for people in a way that nothing else could. Flash forward to a point in my life where, by anyone's standards, in my genre, I'm very successful. 7 years, on television gives you a big platform. I happen to believe for those whom have been given so much, much is expected. And having had the life that I had, good and less fortunate, I learned more from my less fortunate circumstances, by the way. The idea that here in the greatest nation in the history, greatest culture in the history of the world, we have a food life that has never been so great for so few and never so horrible for so many. 9876. What we're doing here over the next couple of days is of the utmost importance. So I look forward to sharing more with you on all of that, and I will hand the microphone to my friend, Fred.